Hi, I'm MrTieDye. Welcome to my channel. So today I'm going to do another hoodie video. I had another request for just somebody wanted to know about doing a spiral on a hoodie and how to get the sleeves and the hood to lay flat. So I was just going to do a quick video and show how I do it. See if we can make that a little easier. So anyways, when I'm doing a spiral on a hoodie, what I usually do, will turn it over and put the front of the hoodie down, and mostly that just is because the bottom side of the hoodie gets the nicest, smoothest area, because as you twist it, it's all flat on the bottom. So that way the front of the hoodie has the nicer spiral lines on it. So what I will usually do then is kind of center the spiral on the chest a little bit. So I just kind of find like where the neckline is, and then I can reach down and I can feel this here is the line of the pocket. So I just kind of go right in between those, maybe just down just a little bit, and that puts the spiral then more on the chest, or the center of the spiral. And then I just twist it up. And the main thing with the hoodie, just for getting it to lay as flat as possible, is just raking your lines out here and any of these creases, just getting them to lay down flat. So I just kind of work it around as I go, and then I'll twist some more. Sometimes with the hoodie, rather than trying to pinch that one little spot, I'll use my whole hand once I get it started and just twist around. And at some point, the sleeves and the hood are going to be the next part that you have to wrap in there. So like I say, I'm trying to get as much of this hoodie to lay flat as possible. And then once I get to the part of the sleeves, so right here, so I'll lay the sleeve out, kind of stretch it out nice and flat, lay it out strong or straight like this here. And then I encourage the sleeves to have these same creases going along them as that I do have in the rest of the hoodie here. And that just helps get them to lay nice and flat. So I'll just kind of start working the sleeve right here at the armpit and just laying it, and you can see how this here is just wanting to curve right along with it. So I'll get that going, and then as I twist it, then I have my other sleeve here, but I also have the hood here. So the hood is usually the next thing that I'll work with. And one of the things you can do, sometimes I'll take a rubber band just to hold things in place a little bit, because I already got that other sleeve laying nicely. And the other thing, rubber band, when you're holding it in place, then you can go back and adjust these folds a little bit and get them to lay even flatter and nicer in there. So that's a nice tool, is just to put that rubber band on there and allow you to kind of work with some of these folds here, give you room to open those up and adjust them a little bit. And then for the hood, like I say, I'll open the hood up like this here. Like I say, we're looking at the back side of the hood, so I'm just opening that hood all the way up. And then I'm going to do the same type of thing here. I'm going to get some of these creases to lay, and part of it is going to be a little wonky just because the hood isn't completely flat. But just to get that to lay in as flat as possible, so whether you have to kind of scrunch a little bit or pleat a little bit in this hood, once you kind of have it arranged a little bit, then I just slowly wrap it around the hood here. You want to make sure that you don't pull too hard or you'll undo your spiral. You're very twisted in here. So I'm just getting that to lay nice and flat there. And you can even open this rubber band up and expand it to hold the hood in place. Sometimes the hood, you feel like you need an extra hand in here. So now I can straighten this other sleeve out, get it laid out flat, and just extending straight out from the hood here, or from the rest of the hoodie. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to create some of these creases here and just get it to lay nicely alongside the rest of the hoodie. And that's how I do the twisting on the hoodie to get the sleeves worked in there. And then I like to use kite string to tie my stuff up with, just because I can adjust the tension on things how and where I want to. And I'll put a link to my kite string video down in the description box to show you how I work with kite string, and it also includes how I work with sinew. So I can go around this and tie, flatten out individual pieces, tuck them under the kite string, and then tighten that up. Now I just keep making adjustments just so that this here is laying as flat as possible, and that I have access to all of these creases, because that's the other thing with the hoodies. Once you start dyeing it, it looks like everything's dyed, but then if you start opening these cracks and crevices up, you'll find that there's white spaces in there. So I like to make sure that I don't have too many of these creases that are laying flat over top of stuff, because really then it's hiding a section. So I try to make sure all of my creases, I can open them up from the top, and the bottom side usually is pretty easy, just because of the way it folds up on the bottom. But I just like to make sure that I have access to them, and in that way I can then adjust them. That will hopefully make the dye go down better inside. Okay, I think we about have it here. I like to get this tied enough that I can pick it up and move it around without pieces and parts coming unwrapped on it. Okay, so there's my hoodie. So I'm going to flip this over, and like I say, this here is now the front of the hoodie, and all my creases are laying pretty nicely. At this point, if I need to make any adjustments, and this here is where the hoodie is, so that's one of the places where sometimes you need to make an adjustment. So I just kind of tuck and fold things in as needed. And like I say, this here is maybe 2.5 inches thick on there, so I like to try to keep that as nice and flat as possible. So on the front side of the hoodie, I'm going to draw some lines for my dyeing. And this one here, somebody requested a hoodie from me, so this is going to be for them. So I'm going to dye this in blues and purples. So I think I have 2 of each color, so I'm going to do 8 pieces of pie on here. So I basically just made a cross on there, and now I'm going to make another one in the middle here, giving me 8 pieces of pie on the hoodie. And then I can dye 2 of each section in each color that I have selected here. And then to get the lines on the other side, I just try to extend these lines all the way down. So let me see if I can show you what I'm doing. I'm just taking this line here and extending it all the way down to the edge here, so that from the other side I can see where all of these lines are and draw the same one. So I'll start out by just extending each one of these lines. And then once I have it, then it's pretty obvious where all the lines go. So then I just connect them up. And this just helps make the dyeing go faster if I'm not trying to figure out where I need to put my dyes at. And these are just washable markers. I buy these just at the store, and I bought some off of Amazon. This one here is a Crazy Art brand. I don't know if you can see that or not. There we go. The other brand that I use is Crayola. They both seem to wash out pretty good. But if I'm working on a t-shirt, sometimes I'll go ahead and just do the inside of the t-shirt just in case something doesn't wash out. That's a little harder to do on the hoodies, working on the inside, because that's where the soft fuzzy side is, and a lot of that is polyester, and the dye kind of runs funny on polyester, so I like more control. So I'll almost always dye hoodies from the outside rather than the inside. So there's all my lines. I'm going to get set up, put some gloves on, and we'll be back to dye this in a second. Okay, so here we are to dye the hoodie, and I end up having 3 blues and 3 purples. So I'm going to put my light blue and my light purple on underneath one of my darker blues and darker purples. So I am starting out with the turquoise here, and I'm just going to dye 2 of the pieces of pie with the turquoise dye. And I'm going to come back later and check on these cracks and stuff in all the creases here, open them up. But to start with, I'll go ahead and take this bottle and poke it down inside just so I can try to get as much saturation in there as possible. And then I come back later and check it before I put it away to batch. So when I flip this over, I made sure that I'm putting the colors in the same places. I could see my light purple right on this spot here, so I'm putting light purple down again, and I see my turquoise in these 2 spots. So I'll put my light blue down in those, and then go for the darker colors. Okay, now at this point I start opening things up just to check for saturation. And one easy way to do it is just to reach under and just kind of push some of the creases up. The main thing though is, since I reached underneath, I have blue on my hand here. If you're working with multiple colors, say a rainbow, then you want to make sure you wash your hands out before you reach into other areas. But since I have just blue and purple, they're all going to mix pretty good, so I'm not worried too much about just a little bit of dye contamination. So I just kind of open that up. I see little tiny bits of white in here. That's not too bad. I mean, I'll still go ahead and add just a little bit of dye to it, but what I'm looking for, if there's any really big chunks, because some of this here, the dye is still going to spread a little bit and it'll fill that in, or the tiny spots of white will just add a little bit of contrast. So if you just go all the way around and just kind of poke, I'm poking up with my finger here just to open those creases up so I can look down inside. But if I was doing a rainbow spiral, I'm not going to go from my green into the orange or yellow or something underneath, just because I would contaminate the bottom side. But with purples and blues, it's all pretty good. So I'm going to just open those up all the way around on the top side, and then I'll flip it over and I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom side, because hoodies are so thick that it can hide a white area in there fairly easily. So any of the thicker, if you have thick parts of your t-shirt or your hoodie, those are places to really look. So like up around the hood and stuff, some of those creases are a little bit awkward just the way that they're folded up. So that's a place that you might want to check really good around. But this here is all looking pretty good. I got my first saturation in there really nice. So I think this here is going to be ready to batch. Yeah, see, I'm only finding just these little tiny spots in here. And those are easy enough to add some extra dye to, just to make sure everything is saturated nicely. So there's another light spot. So it pays off to open these up and find those ahead of time, especially with hoodies. Okay, I think this here is ready to batch. The other way is you can just pry open the creases. The center ones, they're a little bit smaller, so it's harder to peek into those, but if you have a cuticle pusher, you can use that to peek into some of these smaller cracks here. So you just kind of open it up, but usually the smaller cracks have less fabric in them, so they don't have as much of a saturation issue as other areas do. But yeah, just find whatever method works for you to open things up and just check all of the cracks and crevices, and you'll be happy you did. Or as Monk would say, you'll thank me later. So there is a tie-dye spiral hoodie, and I'm going to let this batch now for 48 hours, and then I'll have the results posted here in just a couple seconds. Thank you. Please like and share and give these videos a thumbs up if you're enjoying them.